Hey y'all, it's Moonlight Cowboy again, and today we're going to be talking about conduits and power management. So, conduits are super important in building, they're one of the more critical items that we have. And power management, obviously, we don't like to have a bunch of wires floating around everywhere, so I'm going to show you some really cool techniques, some cool decorative ideas, whatnot. So first things first, we have our vending machine here, and we want to hide the power for that. So this first trick is how to hide or run power anywhere you want throughout your build. So if you notice, I put that conduit on top of an item, and then I moved it just slightly. Now it could have been any item; it didn't have to be that conduit. But the conduit did have to be attached to the wire. So once I attached it, as you see, I moved it and I was able to then pull it through all that foundation and everything. Goes right through, and then nothing but net got power there. Now you can do the same thing without the conduit if you want to do a direct attachment. See, I did a rug this time, and I pulled it a little closer to the machine, attached to the cable to the generator, and once I grabbed that rug, and after I moved it briefly, I can just do the same thing, but I tend to use the conduits a little bit more just so that way I have better access. Now you can do the same thing with the wall conduits by putting it on a small camp item that is wall mounted. So move that, and then as we see, I'm going to put this in the back. Now, these first several tricks about power management, a lot of you already know. But it wouldn't behoove me to do a full video on power management and conduits if I didn't include these tricks. So for those of you who don't have this generator, and for those who do, upcoming tricks are going to be involving how to hide power otherwise. So for those of you who have this generator or another small generator, preferably one that doesn't give off a lot of smoke, you can just drop merge that into like a small camp item like this stash box right here. Now when you're putting the conduit on the side, you will need to go back and forth with it on the pressure plate, as you'll see here. To merge it down. If you were to put the conduit on top, you wouldn't have to, but to me it doesn't hide it quite as well. But you kind of get the technique as I'm doing it there, and boom, we can hide that generator and the conduit. Now let's say we don't want that box to be shown, right? So, you know, we have power in a weird spot. All we have to do is destroy that box, and when we're not in build mode, that box is invisible. And I can just put that light right there. And the only thing you're really going to see from this, you're going to see a little bit of a cable. But if you place, depending on where you place that conduit, that cable will be very small. As I said before, you could drop merge that conduit into the, from the top. And you could probably merge it down into the generator a little bit too, so it doesn't poke out. But that's just why I use the side conduits. So now we're going to hide power and foundations. This one's pretty easy. You just got to get the right angle for it. So you got to kind of grab that corner and drag it down. See how it all dropped down in there? And you don't want to jump on this too much. You don't want to take it down too far, because if you do, it'll actually disconnect the power. And then you'll be like, oh, wow, this isn't working, Moonlight Cowboy. Right. So you see there's the generator and the conduit right there. They're all connected. And so I'm just going to remove one of these foundations right here. And we're going to take and move this one into place. And once I do that, I always like to put a lamp out just so you guys can see that, like, I'm not kidding, it works. So another way people use to hide generators, this isn't a way that I typically use, is to do the springboard trap. You can do a lot of hiding with the springboard trap. The reason why I don't really use it is because it does leave back a little bit of the trap, as you're about to see right there, which you can hide, but that's why I don't necessarily use that trick. And of course, we're going to put the light. It does work. So just another way that you can do that. All right, so floating conduits, this one's real easy. Just place a conduit, attach a conduit, and remove the conduit from the original one that you attached. That one's super easy to do, but this is going to involve a lot of tricks coming up. So you can do this with all sorts of conduits. It doesn't just have to be the small one. I'm just showing you that it can be pretty much anything that snaps into a conduit can do this trick. All right, so now we're going to get to the nitty gritty. So we're going to do an easy conduit ladder. So what I did is I stacked my items and I lined them up with that wall, and now I'm going to remove the roof and wall just to make it easier. You could do it by destroying stuff, but I want to be easy. So watch, I'm going to line up my conduit, and then once that's placed, I'm going to snap another one into it. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting. I'm going to remove that conduit. Make sure it's lined up. It looks pretty good. And now I'm going to remove that box. Then I'm going to snap a conduit back to that. Then I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to take off the snapping option. And when I do that, what happens is it automatically drops it down exactly below it. So that's why these are going to be perfectly straight. So watch, I pick it up and I turn snapping off and it goes right back down. And I can just keep doing that until I get that perfect letter. That way you're not like fidgeting around trying to make sure each one's perfect, because that's why a lot of people get frustrated with this trick. So this is like the super easy way to do this. And all of these are going to be identical going all the way down, and the spacing is going to be identical because I use the same table. Once I get those back into place, we can just add our wall back. I'm a little OCD, so I'm going to make sure it's the right wall. And then I'm going to add a roof. And yeah, so that's back. And then let's make it a real ladder by adding posts. Now it could be stairs posts. You could have used other, like the conduits that go on the wall, the big ones. I like to use these fence posts. They add a little bit more texture to the walls and that look. So, and on this wall set, it makes sense. So that looks pretty good, right? So now I've got a ladder going up to my roof for whatever reason. But, you know, if you have like, say, a loft bedroom or something like that, it can look really sharp. All right, so conduits as knobs. There's two ways to do this. This is going to be easy technique. This is the way that I would do it if I was only doing one set of knobs on all of my cabinets. So I'm basically eyeballing this. I'm making sure it's perfect. I'm getting it as close to the wall but without turning red. On these particular cabinets, you'll have to find the distance on whatever cabinet you're using, but I know on these, as you're going to see, it pokes out just a little bit when I got them that close to the wall. Now I'm going to get my trusty pressure plate. And I am going to count clicks. So 8 clicks on each of those gets these to where I want them to be. You could obviously do however many clicks you want. And I would just do the same thing for both. Now, you could also blueprint the conduit and the counter that you're using. That way they're all in the exact same spot too, so you're not eyeballing each one. But for this, I'm pretty good at eyeballing stuff, so those came out pretty good. And this works for other things too for knobs. It doesn't just have to be counters. So on a thing like this, like unless you have super thick walls, this might not be practical for you. But like we're gonna put this in a corner, and you're not gonna see the conduits behind it. So like kind of catty corner back there. And I think that this looks really good on these. So when you turn this around, you still get that large side of a decor item with this curio thing. But now that we put these knobs in there, because there's that little division in the middle, as you see, it kind of looks like it's supposed to be doors right there. So now I got little knobs there, and yes, it sticks out like crazy, but in the right circumstances, like I said, we can just put this over here in this corner. As you see, it can't go in the wall, but we could destroy the wall and put it through. If I had something on the other side to hide it, that would probably work, but for what we're going to do here, I'm just going to put it right there. And yeah, it looks pretty good. Now it's got knobs. Alright, so now we're going to do the conduit trick, but with a little bit more complication, right? So I stacked a bunch of these Vaultec mats. I love those mats because they stack really well on top of each other. And I'm going to destroy these counters. The nice thing about these conduits too is they snap through things easier than most things do. So what I did and why I did this on this mat, you're going to see here in a minute. But first, let's just line these up. So I got my first conduit in as a knob, as you're going to see here in a second. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, similar to the last one that we did. And almost grabbed the foundation. That would have been muy mal, very bad. Alright, so line up that third one and get that knob in there. Again, they snap through like butter. No real finicking, just making sure that the positioning's right. That's the key. If it's not, you can always go into free cam mode and fish it out. Fish out the conduit and try again. Alright. So now let's see. Nope, I gotta make one more adjustment. So while we're getting this adjustment in place, I'm going to tell you why I stacked it on these mats. Because with these mats, I'll be able to adjust the height that I want the next set to be. So I can remove a bunch of mats now. Oh, got my first ones done, and I'm going to remove, whatever I think that magic number is. I'm going to remove those right there. And from here, I can make some micro adjustments, maybe remove a few more. To be honest, I could have removed several more to make it perfect, but you get the point. Now, if you notice, I did the same thing that I did with that ladder trick before, to make sure that now the knobs are going directly underneath. There's not going to be any kind of weird, where they're going to be off. If they're going to be off, it's from going left to right. It's not going to be up or down. So again, I just am going to take this conduit, once I can grab it. I'm going to snap it in, and then I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to unsnap it, and it's going to drop it the exact spot it needs to be at the next level, just like with the stairs. Again, the only thing I need to worry about is making sure that it was left to right up at the top. Once I did the top part, the rest of it is super easy, because really it's just procedural. Because I'm just picking it up, and it's automatically going to place it for me to the right spot at that level, as long as I had that level correct with my mats, right? Cool. So that's my second set of knobs. I'm going to find that wherever I feel like that magic spot's going to be to go down a little bit further. And yeah, I got to kind of play with it. There we go. And I'm doing the same thing all over again. So now, taking it down and adding my conduit. It does get a little tricky the more conduits you add. You just kind of got to play with it a little bit. But as you saw, I was able to get it in there, no problem. It's just that they want to snap to everything else. That's all it is. Nothing getting in the way here. The counters are typically pretty friendly on things like this. And here we go. So we're going to do this 2 more times. And once I move it with the rug, it breaks that connection automatically with the other conduit. So it's actually, this is like the most seamless process I found for doing anything with conduits. Alright, and now we just got to add one more, and then we've got our knobs. Alright, cool. So once I remove my mats, I feel pretty good about where everything's at. I'm going to go out, I'm going to repair everything, and let's go take a look, see how this came out. I think it came out pretty good. Could have taken those knobs down on that second level about one more mat, but I mean, you get the technique. I think it looks pretty cool. It's a nice way to get cool, good looking knobs. Now let's do a conduit bridge. Now I'll tell you up front, what we could have done ahead of time is I could have used that same mat technique to make this bridge like follow like the same level as, like, say a cord that's drooping, kind of like a suspension bridge would. But I'm just showing you the technique real quick. I evenly spaced all these out. I'm not going to walk you through everything. As long as you did it perfectly and you don't have any sitting on top of, like, say, the foundation, you can just remove the foundation and they're all going to be sitting there. So again, I could have used mats gone underneath and I could have placed them to where they're all drooping. But I wanted to do this kind of quick to show you how, because I'm not actually building this camp, just to show you how the technique works. So for this, I'm going to use stairs posts. You can use pretty much whatever you want, fences. You can use conduits. I like the conduit posts, things like that. And for here, again, just because I'm doing this easy mode, I'm going to add some conduits. That gives me a little railing, and now we have more or less a suspension bridge. Looks pretty cool. Again, could have gave it a little sag if I wanted to put a little more effort into it. Now you know how to do that too. Alright, so now to float items with conduits. So we know how to float items using the camp device. Hopefully you watch those tutorials. Now I'm just going to merge this in. I didn't have to merge it in, but I'm just showing you how I would do it if I was floating this car in the sky and I was using a conduit. I'm going to get it to the table length that I want up in the sky. And now I'm going to grab that conduit. And even though it's a car, that conduit can hold everything up. Look at that. It's magic. Alright, so remove the conduit. And once I remove that, I can remove the tables and everything, and yeah, now I've got a floating car. And you can use this with any floor decor item or any item that'll sit on top of a conduit, pretty much. Alright, so this one's a quick one, and I'm only doing this because this will segue into the next tutorial. I've used this in the past to make like, radiators, or, you could use these as like even like a little wall divider. It would be a huge budget drain to do it, but for a tiny camp, it might make sense. Just know that you won't be able to pick it up from the very bottom unless you put a conduit that goes the like at a way that you can grab it easier. But as we place this right here, I'm getting as close to the wall as I can. Kind of looks like a radiator, so it can be something you can use. Now, I'm going to show you the real reason why I wanted to do that. So this is going to be for floating wall decor, and a lot of people don't know you can actually do this on a conduit. But you have to stack all the conduits, otherwise it's going to try and snap to the wall. But when you basically made a wall out of conduits, it's going to snap to the conduits. So on this small item, I'm just trying to find which conduit it's attached to. And so it's not that one. It's not that one. I'm just getting them out of the way until I can find it. Not that one. All right. And there we are. So now I can just snap this to a free floating item. And because of how small that item is, it looks kind of hideous. You got the conduits just floating out there. So we're actually going to do this test with a real item. So here I did some larger conduits. And I want to put a painting on this because maybe I want to create like an easel situation, or I just want the painting to be floating in midair. So on the paintings, it seems as though you can just grab the top one because that's where the anchor point is. And then I can just attach it the same way I have with everything else. Remove the conduit. And yeah, now I can float a painting in midair without, using any other tricks, just a little conduit right there. Pretty cool trick, not have to go underground for it or anything. All right, so hanging the fixtures the clean way. This one's a little bit complicated because it's going to require you to spam, but everybody who's built a few camps knows that moment when the wire looks like it's intersecting with the with an item and it flashes green. We're going to play upon that trick. So I placed a conduit there, and I'm placing a conduit above it by flexing that roof and making it angled. But if you notice, see, it kind of does that flash green part. So if I can get this thing to connect by spamming for it to connect, like right there. Yep, I got it to connect. I can then remove that conduit, and that wire is going to stay there. So now this becomes real easy. All I have to do, as long as I made sure that wire was straight, which in all honesty on this one I didn't, but you'll get the point here in a second, is just add my whatever item I want. It could have been a light, could be a ceiling fan, could be whatever I want to be dangling off of a cord. And yeah, see, I got a little crooked, but you get the point. Pretty easy to do. You just need something in the way where you can just get it to flash green so you can spam it. So this is the easier way to hang fixtures. It's not as clean looking, but as you see, I put the light onto a conduit, and then I merged it down, and then I am going to just place that on the roof. And once I do that, I'm going to attach the wire like so, or the conduit to the top of the fan, and then I can attach the wire. Cool thing about this way too is you can like delete the wire and you can move it wherever you want and reattach the wire. It's pretty easy. Learning a lot so far. All right, for the next one, we have conduit lamppost. So this is an idea that I came up with a while back, and it was really to play with this light, but I realized that, all of our lampposts except for the oil lamp are all super huge. So I wanted to create something that looked a little bit more unique and custom. So I'm doing my normal conduit thing. I'm just going to line it up as best I can with the house. Obviously, if this was the house I was working on, it would be like super, like trying to get it like perfectly aligned. And now I'm just going to go to this conduit, which is a great conduit. This is the one I was also mentioning too that you could use to make the ladders with if you want to do like a full like kind of pipe looking ladder. Anyway, so now I've got my conduit in place. I'm going to remove these tables. And now I'm going to destroy that. And once I destroy this, I'll be able to snap foundations through this. Alright, so yeah, now I'm snapping my foundation, and because I'm a little OCD, I'm going to make sure the other foundation is what I want it to be, and now I can repair it. Now, I could have hung a light or something off of that, but I want it to look even cleaner, so I put a little like power radiator right there. And now I'm going to use the countdown chandelier. And this is a little something I played with the other day. And you're going to see I'm going to spin this around. You can keep like attaching it to itself in the perfect spot and just rotating it to close out these little lines so it looks like an actual ball. And look, you get those lines on there, which is pretty cool. It does create a ton of light, but it's a very unique looking item. It looks super custom. So just an idea for making a lamppost in your build. You can also do like a shower with that too. A lot of people do shower heads. So now we're going to do conduit railing. And for this, I'm just lining up my conduits, and I'm doing the exact same thing that I did before. This time, I just wanted to do a very small bend. So I'm going to remove the conduit, and I'm going to add the conduit. And you've seen me do this a few times now. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to toggle off snapping. I'm going to add another one. We're going to do it one more time. And by doing this, of course, like you hopefully know by now, this means that all three are going to be identically above each other in the exact same spot at the exact same level because I use the same item. So, all right, so we got the base of this. So a lot of people are like scared to do these because they're like, oh, mine are always so crooked. As long as you can line up the one conduit, the first one on the top, this is super easy to do. So I put those other conduits in place because that's where I really want the bend to be. And now I can do my whole fence based off of that one conduit as long as I got that one correct. So now I can just start snapping them to there. Of course, it's not going to look like railing without supports. You can use a lot of things for supports with these. In this example, I'm going to use the stairs post just because it's easiest, and it kind of matches too. In all honesty, this is what I often used for this. I'm going to destroy the conduits. There's two ways of doing this, so this is the first way. This one's not as clean. And I can then kind of maneuver the stairs post into it to a certain extent. See, it kind of goes through there. And I can repair it, and then it does look like it's supporting it. Of course, because I'm OCD, I also am going to take off that that mochi at the bottom and then that stairs post at the top. Alright, so yeah, that's one way to support it. Now I'm going to show you the other way that I like to do it. This way you just do it conduit first, and you can actually snap them through the conduits easier than you can snap the stairs posts into the conduits. So I do it in reverse. So on this, just put the post exactly where I want it to be, and then I'm going to destroy it. And once I do that, I'll be able to just snap them through. And there's really, this one, you're not going to have any problems doing it this way. See, I'm snapping it basically right through the middle on this one. If I can get that one, there we go. And yeah, there we go. We have it right down the middle, and all we got to do is repair, and now I've got a support there. And that looks pretty cool, especially for like a modern build or ultra modern builds. Those look great. Alright, so now for hard to reach places. So as you see here, I can't put a chair in here. I'm going to try and do a table. It's not going to let me. It says it needs support. This also works on shelving too, so if you got some shelving you want to put items into, this will often work inside of shelving in your camp when you destroy it. So all I did was snap a conduit to as close to the inside of that thing as possible and put a table on it, and now I was able to put a table in there. This works the other way too. So right here I already positioned this to go into the cab of this thing. I want to hang a light off of there, so as you see I got that light there. I'm going to get the conduits in there. I'm going to get it as close to the inside as possible. Let's make sure I can snap it in. Probably should have tested this first. Yep, there we go. So I was able to hang a light inside of that cab where I probably wouldn't have been able to before. Off of that conduit in there, and it lights up that whole cab if I wanted to use this truck in a build. So this next one is a bonus, and I just wanted to include it in here as a placeholder, so hopefully if you want to learn how to do this, you'll watch the tutorial to Payu, aka Greengrass28G, in the description. But basically there is a way that you can just move your conduits and create wires there. So wanted to include that because I felt like it was super important, but I'm going to let him take over because he is the master of that. He built an Eiffel Tower out of these things. They're incredible. For those of you stuck around for this whole thing, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, share with your friends. Y'all have a blessed day and take care out there.